We're live. Hello, everyone. Happy post-Christmas and almost New Year. Isabella just reminded us before we went live that it is Mercury retrograde. So until January 1st. So don't be too hard on yourself. I think we are all experiencing some chaos right now. And I'm pretty exhausted because I was woken up this morning by banging on the roof, which sounded like it was inside my bedroom. And I looked outside and they were literally right outside my window. The roof that's attached to my wall. Like it's literally sounded like metal banging against metal over and over and over for like 3 hours. And indeed, they're trying to tear up whatever's on the roof over there. So I mean, it was 8 a.m. and that's probably late for you, Isabella, but that's about 3 hours too early for me. So that means I've only had about 4 hours of sleep. But welcome everyone who's tuned in. I hope everyone had a nice Christmas, if they had a Christmas, or that they've just had a nice week. If you are just tuning in, please do us a favor and like and subscribe. It helps the channel and supports the stream. And I think my brain's moving a little bit slower than normal today, so I apologize. But I'm here with Isabella, who is on Twitter at Whose Body Is It? And Isabella's website, of course. This is all down in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube. But if you are not, if you're watching on Twitter, you can find Isabella's website at whosebodyisit.com. You can find her podcast there and her masterclasses. And I'm also here, thank God, because we almost missed her with Mary Lou, who's had a very stressful day and almost didn't make it onto the internet. Are you okay?
I'm good. I just want to say hi to Jessica. I see you in the comments. I hope you're feeling good and having a good night. Yeah. I don't know if I even believe in astrology, but then every Mercury retrograde, like, the internet goes down and today my printer broke and no one showed up for their appointments. It's just, I think there might be something to it.
I also don't believe in astrology, but then Mercury retrograde, I feel like always is really awful and psychotic. And I'll remember that it's Mercury retrograde and then like forget the next day. So this just happened because I was like reading something on the internet yesterday about Mercury retrograde because I knew it would be over January 1st and then completely forgot today. And I was like, why is all this happening to me? And I was talking to Isabella before we went live talking about, I'm like very worried about chaos and drama and stress on New Year's Eve. And I'm hoping that I can avoid it, but I'm having a lot of anxiety about that and about this week, and hopefully at least after New Year's it will be okay.
Like what kind of chaos?
Well, personal chaos. My personal life that I was trying to keep peaceful, I have not managed to. Well, I mean, I can only control myself. I can't control other people, so let's just say that. So but I mean, yeah, it seems like drama forthcoming that I've worked very hard to keep at bay. So it might just be a rough week, and then hopefully things will improve in the new year. But yeah, I did want to just. I'm really tired.
I want to stay awake.
I would love to stay awake today. Oh, you know what I do have though? Oh, I don't. I have a foster puppy right next to me and I wanted to show her, but she's asleep and I feel bad waking her up, but she has such a cute little sweet face and fluffy little ears. Maybe she'll wake up and I'll be able to show. Emma's right behind me because she's feeling jealous. So now Emma's like glued to my body and the little foster puppy is in Emma's normal spot.
Very cute.
Okay, so I did have a correction from last week. It's a pretty important correction when we were talking about plantar fasciitis. Our hot question of the night last week. And I was trying to remember what kind of ball it was that I was using to treat my foot. And it was a lacrosse ball. So I just wanted to add that important information for Megan Wisdom, who was asking. Yeah, I do want to say it's been very successful and I am able to walk, which is more than I can say for last year, where I felt like I could barely walk anywhere. And I also noted that in the comments from last week's video, someone was asking about my morning routine. So because we did go through Isabella and Mary Lou's morning routine. And so someone, what was his name? Russell Houston did actually ask me about my morning routine, which is if I have to go to the gym, I have to set my alarm for around 10:30 or 11. So that I can make it to the gym at 12:30. So that's, an unpleasant thing for me because I have to wake up before noon. But I do set my alarm, and then I drink Athletic Greens, who's not yet sponsored me. So hopefully that'll happen soon so that I can get those for free and drink coffee until I'm forced to leave the house. And then I'm usually about 20 minutes late to the gym because again, it's quite early in the morning for me. If I don't have to go to the gym, I sleep until noon and then I get up and drink coffee and probably, check my email and start tweeting. So that's about it for me. My morning routine. And yeah, how is everybody doing? If people have questions and comments throughout the stream, you can use the live chat. Use the super chat if you want us to for sure see it, because we can't see everything that's happening in there. And yeah, please do feel free to ask questions or comments. I, by my suggestion, wanted to talk this week about female competition because I guess it's something that I've been thinking about for a while and have been trying to get my head around even what that is, like what female competition would look like. I think it's maybe easier for us to picture male competition, displays of masculinity, strength, skill, being able to get the woman, being able to fix the broken whatever. And then there were a couple posts from Chris Williamson, who's the host of Modern Wisdom, that I got really worked up about. So I finally tried to think about it a bit more. But I still am I'm sort of unconvinced that there is a thing called female competition. And it's not because I don't think that women compete with each other, because of course they do, or that women don't feel jealous of one another. But I think that the thing that I was trying to sort out in my head and the thing that I was taking issue with was the idea that women compete with each other specifically or even only around really superficial things, so attractiveness, and specifically attractiveness to men. And I'm sure there are women who feel like that, but I don't feel like that. I feel like when I compete, it feels like it's more in a career sense, I would say. And so then I feel like I'm competing with men as well. Like, I'm sure that I do feel competitive with women in that sense. Like, oh, like, why are they doing better than me? They got their book done and I still haven't, or they're making more money than me, or, they've been interviewed by this person. Why not me? I don't like to admit that I feel these things, but I do feel these things sometimes. So yeah, I want to know what you guys think about is there such a thing as female competition? What might that look like? Do you feel competitive? Sorry, just as you started your thought.
Well, I'm a very competitive person, but I don't think it's a sex-based competition. Like I really want to win if I'm playing Scrabble or something like that. Like I'm a dorky competition person. But what I didn't like about Chris's analysis was what he viewed as female competition was women's critique of the sex trade, right? Like he said that that's one of like the reason women would have a problem with other women being in prostitution was it affects our ability to compete for males to have sex with. Wasn't that what he was implying?
Right. So the first thing, so Chris Williamson, who again is the host of the Modern Wisdom podcast, which I listen to quite regularly. I like him quite a bit. I think he's an intelligent guy. I think he's insightful. His interviews are really good. He's very well prepared. I think he's a hard worker. I don't want to, diss him. But when he talks about women, sometimes I feel like he doesn't know any women, or he reads about women, but doesn't actually, like maybe he doesn't have female friends that are his age. I think he might be around 35 or something like that. Because I was trying to figure this out too. I was like, why would you? I don't know. I don't feel like this. I don't think that the women that I know necessarily feel like this. The way that he was talking about women seemed like, when I picture women who are like this, they're women who are very unattractive to me. So I think I naturally reject them as friends because to me, they read as very insecure women, very superficial women, the kind of women who are really, really needy of male attention and validation from men. And so his interpretation of female competition started with this idea that women are competing sexually for men, which is at the root of their dislike for prostitution. So he had referenced this YouGov poll that asked, do you think prostitution should be legal? And 51% of men said yes, 36% said no, and 30% of women said yes, and 50% said no. And so his conclusion was, first of all, women are more anti-freedom, but most of all, when it comes to the behavior of other women. So he interpreted of that of being controlling of other women's behavior. And his analysis attached to that was that it was a sexual threat to them. And he connected it to slut shaming, which he also said that he felt, and I'm not sure that I agree with this, he felt that women are more likely to slut shame than men and police women who are promiscuous. So I think he's combining two different things because I don't think women in prostitution are promiscuous or slutty. I think they're traumatized. But he said, if one woman, this is his example, like why do women slut shame more than men? Why are women threatened by prostitution? So he says, if one woman offers blowjobs on the second date, it's harder for other women to keep them in reserve until the fourth date as their special treat. This creates a downward spiral of young women feeling like they have feeling like they have to offer more and more sex to more and more guys just to stay in the mating game. So he says slut shaming is a way of enforcing, this is actually a quote from somebody else that he then quoted, slut shaming is a way of enforcing a more restrained sexual norm on other women so that not all women have to become more promiscuous than any of them would like. So, it's this, and I've heard this from other men as well. Women lose out when the price of sex drops, thus they are enforcers of that price. So they're sort of trying to maintain, I'm going to interpret this as like women are trying to maintain sex as sort of like a hard to get thing so that they maintain value. Is that how you're interpreting it? But I mean, I don't see this as having to do with female competition. But maybe I'm missing something. Anyway, that was a roundabout way, but this was what his post was getting at. I sort of wanted to explain how he was seeing things there.
Yeah, his analysis doesn't resonate with me at all in the slightest. It's like a complete inversion. I would agree that women in prostitution are a sexual threat to all other women, in that like those behaviors that are enacted on them and like through porn and in those spaces where it is transactional, and the more more access the man has to your body, the more you get paid. Like I do think that's a sexual threat to him then coming home and enacting that same violence like onto his wife or his girlfriend, or projecting that onto his daughter's friends. Like it's like that's how this becomes like a material threat. So I think like, and then particularly any woman who has like a critical analysis, who's like anti porn and prostitution and surrogacy, like viscerally understands like that threat. And so that is not to be, but that is distinct from like what he's implying, which is that like that he thinks women then feel more obligated to like have more sex or have sex sooner or give like more sex away. And also like the mating thing, like I don't know, from my personal like experience and witnessing partnerships, like good healthy partnerships, like it's not, they don't evolve from the woman who made her body most accessible like or soonest to like the man. It isn't like, I wouldn't say that's like a super effective like dating or like mating strategy. Like you might like end up procreating, like statistically, like that might, you know, the more times you have sex might be that the more times you're actually ending up with a child. But in this idea that like that it's an effective strategy leading to mate, it's just, it's all, yeah, none of what he said resonates.
No, well, and because when I was thinking about it, today and, you know, this past week, I thought, you know, I think that women do compete for men, but I think what they compete for is commitment. I don't think they're competing for sex. I mean, sex is the easiest thing to get out of men. I mean, you could have sex with any man, really. Like, men have very low standards, sorry, men. But, you know, like, I think that what women do want and what is hard to access in men, especially in this day and age, is commitment. And you don't get that by giving blowjobs on the second date. I mean, you might, but that's not the way to get a man. If you're going to play by the rules that generally work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like such a simplistic way of looking at like two people coming together. Like ideally, like each person is like clear about what they want and their values, and they're having honest and, like transparent conversations. And then like, if there's chemistry, that's great. And that's part of one thing you need to move forward. But this like doing things to get a man, or these weird, like dark feminine, like psychology tricks, like it's all so like reductive and simplistic, and like just not like how relationships like form in a sustainable way. Like that description of what like that, yeah, his whole like analysis is just like resonates for like a quick, like short term in and out kind of like experience. And I agree with what you said, Megan, like that if anything, women are in competition for commitment, because commitment generally looks like a diversion of like material resources going to her and her children, like she and her children. And so like that is something to be like, I think really healthily like aware of. Like I think like you should be concerned about if your partner is sleeping with someone else or like has a second family, because like he's going to put money in the direction of whoever he's having sex with. Like that I feel really strongly like about. And that is a threat.
Yeah. And I mean, the blowjob analogy was, possibly like the stupidest analogy of all to demonstrate what he was trying to demonstrate, because I don't think even when I was, a very insecure 18-year-old trying to win these men who were like total players and, who nowadays I would probably consider to be losers, but then we're like the bad boys, so desirable. I never thought about what other women were doing. Like I never thought, oh, I should perform this. There's probably more pressure now to perform a variety of other sex acts because of pornography. Like I wasn't raised on porn, so when I was 18, I really hadn't seen very much pornography at all. Probably just like stuff in a Playboy magazine, maybe. But nonetheless, I can't, certainly not now. And I don't even think then was I thinking, oh, I should give this guy a blowjob, even though I don't want to, just in case another woman does. So then he's going to go with her instead. It's just, I don't think that's something that's ever even occurred to me before.
It's just so disgusting. It really made me lose respect for him and start thinking thoughts like, does he think women are fully human? Does he understand like we're just as human as men and that we are interested in a full human relationship with someone? Or does he think male-female relationships are just ruled by the laws of game theory, that we're all some degree of playing out of like the pickup artist handbook of playing games with each other, and this like I'm going to withhold sex this many times because that's my chess strategy when I'm interacting with men. It made me really sad too, because I don't like understanding that most heterosexual relationships don't seem to be based on like mutual love and affection, and most of the men in the public sphere who talk about sex often talk about it in a way that implies they're not in a healthy, mutually satisfying sexual relationship where people are having sex with each other because it feels good to both of them, not because they're commoditizing sex acts.
Yeah, that makes me feel depressed also, but I do think that that's a reality. Like I think a lot of young women are having sex that they don't like or enjoy, and I don't even know if they don't. Like I don't know if they know that they don't like or enjoy it, because the things that younger women have told me that they do, and I'm like, does that help you achieve an orgasm? Not that I don't think that the only things that you should be doing in the bedroom with a man are things that are going to bring you an orgasm. I think, of course, if you love somebody and you care about them, you want them to have pleasure and you want to give them pleasure also. But I also think you don't do things that feel degrading or that hurt you or are dangerous. And I think that it's harder for women to achieve orgasm than men. So I do think you need to kind of focus on that more as a woman. Like it's not a man doesn't have to try that hard to have an orgasm, but women really have to know what they're doing and what they want, and so does their partner in a lot of ways.
Well, and it's also especially hard if you're on hormonal birth control and you don't actually have a true libido, because suppressing your fertility is suppressing the root of your sex drive. And if you're on antidepressants because you're so depressed because you're reading the internet and these guys are writing stuff like this and it's making you want to take Prozac because the world is depressing. So no, a lot of women don't have any connection to their own desire and their own eros. And apparently a lot of men don't either anymore. I mean, testosterone is dropping and men are on antidepressants and porn is messing people up. But I do want to circle back and say also, like, has he read any feminist analysis of prostitution, and or even just talk to women about why they oppose prostitution, even of normie women who don't like prostitution? They're not so critical of the women in prostitution. They don't think men should be buying sex from traumatized, trafficked women.
I don't think that. It is frustrating because it doesn't sound like he has talked to women about why they, you could just ask women, why, like, what do you think about prostitution? Why don't you like it? there's lots of feminist writing and analysis of this. And it's not that I don't think that women have emotions around all of this. I just think that the last thing that I've ever felt around prostitution is jealousy. And of course, it's not a popular thing to say within this modern third wave times that we're living in. But, I mostly feel sorry for women in prostitution. I think it's horrific. I think that their lives are horrific, and I think that having to do that day in and day out is horrific. And I think about how they got there and how they were raised and what happened to them when they were kids that led them down this path. But I don't think I don't want to say I don't think anyone, but I don't think very many women feel threatened by a prostitute. And if they do, the anger should be directed at the partner who's making them feel that way. Like, I can't imagine that would be sort of a threat that would be isolated from a relationship, that just in general, you're a single woman and you're feeling jealous of those prostitutes who are threatening your ability to get that guy. Like, maybe it could be interpreted, but I think it would be wrong to say you feel jealous of a prostitute if your partner is sleeping with prostitutes. But that's because he's a horrible piece of shit and he's making you feel bad about yourself by cheating on you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, and I guess, yeah, I find that a lot of these, it's disappointing because I find that a lot of these kind of heterodox men who do a lot of, what's healthy masculinity and talking about men's mental health and relationships and sex and sexuality and stuff. And lots of their analysis is really good. But then when it comes to women, I feel like they're just talking about 25-year-old actresses or something. Like, I just thought maybe he just only knows actresses. Like, maybe he only knows the kind of women who genuinely are extremely threatened by aging, because then they age out of value, literally. But most women are not in that position. Like, I don't think that most women operate in such superficial ways.
I think that his whole trajectory from we're jealous of women for giving away what we have as a bargaining chip in the relationship, it's clear he does view sex as a commodity. And that does, even though he can't see it, gets to the root of why we do oppose prostitution, which is no woman is free when other women are for sale, right? That we're all on the market if any of us are. And I don't think he's cracking that. Well, he does view sex as something to trade, something to bargain with, something women have as a commodity rather than a form of communication with somebody you're attracted to, or something you want to engage in with someone you're attracted to, that's outside the rules of the market.
And to turn, like, it's bizarre that he would interpret that he would project a conflict between the Madonna and the whore, rather than see it for the complexity of rather than seeing it from a Jungian or any kind of basic psychology model of trying to, let's just say you, for some reason you want to convince a man who's sleeping with prostitutes that he should be with you. It's there's a lot more going on there, in terms of your psychology and reenacting childhood traumas and needing to will your way to a different result. There's so much else going on in that situation that focusing on she's just jealous of what she can't give him more regularly or doesn't want to give him more. It's revealing that what could be like a conversation about relationship and human psychology and loneliness and whatever other million ways you could think about this issue, that he would pit women against one another and make women who oppose porn and prostitution, make that an issue of female competition, which I've never seen any like proof of. Like, I don't know a single rad, someone who has like a rad feminalysis who's like revealed that she's actually deeply envious of women who sell their body for sex. Like, in what universe has that ever like happened?
Right. And I mean, men do this all the time, like men who gaslight women, I should say. Like, so men who use pornography and don't want to think about what's happening behind the scenes, essentially. Men who don't want to think about what's happening to those women or girls. Men who don't want to acknowledge how much trafficking exists within the porn industry and how much abuse happens. Who don't want to acknowledge that just in general, watching like women being degraded or hurt while you're jacking off to those images is a really unhealthy and disrespectful thing to do. Unhealthy for you and your sexuality, as well as, for your partner, your potential future partners, as well as for her, as well as for all women, of course. But, a man who doesn't want to think about those things will often say, oh, you're just jealous. Like, it's just a fantasy. Don't worry about it. It's not real. Like you're just jealous of these other women. And, even if his partner who was saying, I don't like it when you watch porn, really was jealous of all those other women, I think that would be totally justified. But I don't think that's it, because it's like you shouldn't be engaging in sexual acts with other women when you're in a relationship with a woman. But I mean, I think that it's wishful thinking. I think it's all wishful thinking. Like, you wish that women were competing for you in that way because you compete for women, and maybe that makes you feel bad, or maybe it makes you feel powerless, but it's not true. It's not how, I don't think it's how women work. I mean, if there are women who feel that way, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that's the case.
It's unfortunate. It's so depressing and unfortunate to get these little glimpses into the mind of these male heterodox thinkers when you thought that they thought women were human.
Yeah. Or it's like the Ayala, what we talked about with the the defense. Well, some women are just built for it, right?
Right.
Like,
what was revealed in his analysis, and like men who sort of see prostitution and pornography in this way, is again that some men believe that women in porn and prostitution really just like sex more than other women, which we talked about that with the Ayala thing. Like, some women are just built this way, because then he's tying slut shaming and promiscuity to all of this. So, it's like women are judgy of women who have more sex, i.e. like more sex, as if women in prostitution like sex, like, as if that's what's going on.
right.
Or maybe they would like sex if they weren't in prostitution, but most of the prostitutes, if not all of the prostitutes, probably all of the women in prostitution who have been in, who are in prostitution, are not interested in sex because of what's happened to them in prostitution. But I mean, I guess I wonder what you guys think about that idea that women slut shame more than men do. So separated from prostitution perhaps, but just in general, are women more judgmental of women who dress slutty, act slutty, whatever you want to call it, than men are?
I can't say I've ever been a slut, consider myself to slut shame, but I will say that I think if it does happen, when women do it, it's just a complete, like, what it like ruminating on a particular woman or situation, whether that's like a cheater or, you know, like with the girl next door or a prostitute, like it's besides the point. Like you are reenacting some kind of like unworthy like persona where like you like fixating on the women is like an active distraction from the issue at play, which is like you are with a liar and a cheater, and that needs to be addressed. So I think like perhaps there is some kind of like survival mechanism built in there somewhere to like attempt to keep the family together by fixating on the mistress, you know, so that she can be eliminated, so that we can conserve the resources for the children, and so your husband can redirect the energy towards the family unit and, you know, not cause shame amongst your family name, you know, whatever. So I think that that perhaps, yeah, I mean, I can see how it's there. Do women do it more? Perhaps, because they have more to lose. Yeah, I could see it as some kind of like attempt at preservation. But yeah, but it's still under some kind of illusion that leads to healthy relationship, like, or commitment, like you said, or like that that we can trade sex, we can give sex and get intimacy.
Right, or that like if women are offering it up, then it lessens our value, which I just don't. I just saw a comment that was good in the live chat, but I mean, I think that I am judgmental of women who act like skanks, like, or who dress really, really provocatively out in public, just because I think like, God, you must be so insecure that you're out, like, you know, where I live in a town that's full of cobblestones, so it's very impractical to wear heels, and like you see these girls like hobbling around in stilettos about to break their ankles, and I'm sure they'll end up falling at some point in the night at least once. You know, I'm just like, you look so uncomfortable, and like all of your body parts are out, and again, it's just like not necessary. Like I just feel like, you know, and I dress up sometimes, and when I was younger I totally would, you know, go out in like pleather little skirts and mesh tops, and I loved getting male attention because that was the only way I knew how to gain power when I was 18 years old. So I feel like I know, like I'm seeing women and I'm like, this is just because you don't have genuine self-confidence and you don't really know how to get genuine self-confidence. And so you're getting it through male attention. And I don't feel like men like those women more than they like me. Like maybe they like looking at those women more than they like looking at me in like my tube socks. But like, you know, I don't feel competitive with them. I just feel like you're kind of pathetic. And you know, and it's not, and I'm not all women. You know, I have plenty of friends who dress in very little clothes around here. It's very normal where I live to be out in a bikini top and not much else. And there's plenty of women that I know who dress like that who I still do like and respect. But I mean, I don't think this is a very cohesive analysis that I'm offering, but I'm just saying, you know, I think women who do throw themselves at men sexually, I think it reveals them something about themselves. And I think I can say that from experience, from having been like that when I was younger, and what that actually meant and why I was doing that and why I don't do that now. And it's not a jealousy thing. I think I'm judgmental for fair reason, not because it's some kind of threat to me or because feel like I'm competing with 20-year-olds for men. I mean, I would never. Like, I don't want to be with a man who wants to be with a 20-year-old. So,
Well, and I don't think a sane woman wants to be with a man who's attracted to women who are acting that way to attract men, right? I mean, that is not how you attract a quality man. That's how you attract somebody who's only interested in you dressing to sexually titillate him, right? Like this, it's not comfortable to dress that way. I don't care what any woman says. No one's comfortable in really high heels. Nobody's comfortable in like really skin tight clothing. It's incredibly uncomfortable to dress that way. And then you talk to young detransitioners or even girls who think they're trans, and many of them feel that way because they don't feel comfortable in those clothes, and they'll say things like, I've never felt comfortable in a push-up bra and stilettos. No one has. Like that, it's painful. As Sheila Jeffries goes so far as to call it, a harmful cultural practice on par to foot binding to have women wear these, binding clothes and high heels. So no, you don't want a guy who expects that in your behavior, or you're trapped in that for your entire relationship with him, right?
Right. I mean, as much as I'm judgmental of those women, I'm judgmental of the kind of men who are seeking that out also. Like, I don't have respect for men who want that either.
Right. And then I'm old enough too to worry about the safety of those young women. And, if you've got hardly any clothes on, you've got shoes you can't run in, you're getting drunk, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about men harming you while you're
That's what my mother said to me when I was 18 also.
I know, what a prude.
Fair enough. She's like, how will you run? I was like, I can run.
Yeah. I feel sadness. Yeah. I feel like sadness and like lack of control. It's pretty, I also think like the safety issue, and like you said, Mary Lou, like it's just not sustainable. Like unless you want to be trapped in that, unless that's what you're, I don't know how you could have any real understanding of what that life looks like before you live it. But yeah, it's frightening.
I mean, I want to just say, I think it's fine to want to look attractive, and I think it's fine to dress up and want to look pretty and even sexy. Like, I don't think that it's bad. Like, I think that it would be a lie to pretend that I don't want to be seen as attractive. But it's just that that's not how I think I attract men. Like, and I'm being serious when I say that. I think it's my personality, and men are like, oh, you're so dumb. Of course it's not. And like, well, I think it is. Cause like, it's like, if you could choose from these 1,000 women who are objectively hotter than I am, younger than I am, in like skimpier clothes than I am, thinner than I am, then why would a man choose me? Like, I'm pretty sure that it does have something to do with me. And I don't know why men would insult other men in such ways, like it's,
I think there's the distinction between like an inner beauty and an outward beauty, the way you carry yourself, how you enter the room, how you speak, how your body relate, like all of that. And then what, the kind of the cliche kind of like stilettos and a short tight dress, which is like a contortion, like a pretzeling of the self to perform, like to fit some kind of performance of like a hypersexualized and no woman looks like that in the privacy of her home or in the comfort of her girlfriends. Like, that is a particular kind of performance that only happens in public, in the presence of like generally groups of men. So I think, of course, I always want to feel beautiful. I always want to feel like I am nourishing and supporting myself to get to that, feeling of beauty and attraction, which is just like health and embodiment. But But that is, yeah. And even like adornment, you know, like we're not against adornment, you know, like it's not that extreme. And that's where this conversation usually goes with, you know, anti-feminist rhetoric. Of course, the way we look is going to influence who we attract. And of course that's important. And I really don't think we should be procreating with anyone that we don't think is just freaking awesome looking. You know, you're gonna be looking at that face for the rest of your life. You're gonna be looking at half that face if you have kids. It's like you're gonna be looking at that set of, you know, that set of genes for a while. Like you are merging your DNA. So definitely a valuable thing to consider.
But and of course we're not, or I'm not, I've never chosen a man based on like, oh, this is the hottest guy in the room.
Mhm.
It's always about chemistry and charisma and like body language and, you know, sense of humor, or, you know, me feeling comfortable with him, like all sorts of other things. It's just, I think it's so silly to pretend that happens in either direction. I think men like to think about it. You know, men and women are very different sexually. And I think that, of course, it's a lot easier for a man to just sleep with a woman that he's just met that night, and he doesn't necessarily have to care very much about anything about her beyond like she seems hot or she's willing to sleep with me. And maybe there are a few women who are like that out there, but for the most part, that's true of men and not true of women. So I think men probably have a hard time understanding that women don't operate like that, especially when a lot of women claim to operate like that, which I think in a lot of ways is a lie, whether they're lying to themselves or lying to other people to seem, you know, hypersexual or sort of like a cool girl or whatever. Again, you know, when I was young, I think I would have engaged in that kind of rhetoric too. Like, oh, I don't want commitment. Like, I'm trying to have fun. But then, of course, you end up feeling really hurt and you end up feeling really bad about yourself. And it's not healthy behavior psychologically or, of course, physically. It's a lie that we tell ourselves to try to empower ourselves in situations that don't feel empowering. The finisher in the live chat said, yes, slut shaming is real. A very famous female comedian was just doing it the other day. To me, it red flags her own self-hatred and discontent with her own femininity and her lack of personal agency. So I don't know who the comedian was or exactly what she was saying, but I mean, I don't think that it's self-hatred to speak negatively about other women who I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know what this comedian was saying, but I feel like it's weird, I guess, to connect confidence and a like or dislike for one's own femininity because you say negative things about women who sleep around, I guess. I mean, I'm not judgmental of women who sleep around necessarily, except again that I might assume that they have some kind of like childhood trauma depending on their behavior. But it's not like, oh, you sleep around, I hate you. It's like, okay, well, something's going on with you.
No, I think that it often is a symptom of unhappiness. It's not, you know, promiscuity doesn't usually make women happy or well adjusted. I think with the slut shaming, I'm thinking back to the slut walks. Remember those? Remember how ridiculous that was? And
yeah,
there is this third wave lack of analysis around dressing for male attention, being empowering. And I remember going to one of the slut walks just to check it out and see who was there. And I mean, I was not dressed like, I was just wearing
a slut
t-shirt. No, I mean, I don't know what to do. I mean, you know, I mean, there have definitely been points in my life where people could have thrown that epithet at me for sure, you know, but so I don't know what a slut dress is like. When I was in college, it was like, a flannel shirt and jeans you bought in the men's department. Like that was my slut gear whenever I was at my most promiscuous. But I went to the slut walk, and what most of them had on was like bondage wear and lingerie and like really dressing to attract male sexual attention. And this one young woman in my community made this big Facebook post about it, of how, like, slut pride. And then she said, I have a right to dress, to flaunt my sexuality and not be ogled by men. And that
No, you don't.
right, that sums up the confusion and the lack of analysis and just the idiocy of the whole movement. And if you're wearing uncomfortable clothes to attract male attention, you're probably going to attract undesirable male attention.
Well, what are you wearing it for? Why would
Right.
you put those clothes on? Like,
It's not only going to be the lovely, wonderful, high quality men who really think women are fully human who are giving you attention if you're dressing that way.
I mean, first of all, you don't have the right to be looked at or not looked at by anybody. You're out in public, so anybody who wants to look at you can look at you.
Right.
And yeah, maybe it doesn't feel good to be ogled. And men who are sleazebags very well might be men or sleazebags to women who are dressed in all sorts of clothes, as well as women who are underdressed.
If you don't want to be ogled, like, don't go to the bar in pasties and a G-string, right? Like, that's insane.
It's just the most comfortable thing I could find.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and yeah, nudity in public is generally like alarming.
Well, of course it's attention seeking. I mean, to say otherwise is a lie. That's all it is.
Right.
I mean, and I don't think that it's true that women slut shame more than men do. I have been slut shamed again when I was younger, and it was almost always, not 100%, but almost always by men who said really horrible, disgusting, misogynistic, hateful things to me and about me because I slept around. And it was very hurtful and kind of traumatic at the time. And that's how that's how men treat women who I'm trying to think of an adult way to say this, but women who seem to not have any standards and allow themselves to be passed around to whoever happens to be there. And no, it's not a nice way to treat a woman. It's not a nice way to treat anybody, but I think that there is a reality behind that behavior wherein I think it's natural to not have respect for people who don't have respect for themselves and who are just going to go with whoever happens to pay attention to them in that moment because it feels good in that moment.
Yeah, I think it's just like a misdirected, like there is something wrong going on here. Like, why are you sleeping with all these people that you don't have like emotional safety with, physical safety with? Like, why are you attaching so regularly to people you don't know? Why are you opening yourself up to disease and pregnancy? Like, I think those are all worthy concerns.
Why don't you expect a man to stick around, call you the next day, have to treat you with respect?
Yeah, for me, it's not so much like, why do you expect different? It's just like, what have you like not healed? Like, what are you reenacting that like is calling for attention, and what lesson have you not learned yet? To keep repeating a behavior that is clearly not like in service to you as an individual of any relationship, and certainly like not a service to like society. So I'm feeling like kind of generous tonight around the potentially like positive intention in the slut shaming behavior, to be like, there's something not right here, but it's not that you're a bad person and you're going to hell and I want to like humiliate you. I'm certainly not endorsing that.
Right.
But like, hey, there's something here that it is wrong on an individual level, and like society, like there are like lasting effects, like to women as a sex class, to relationship, to the way sex is, casual sex is normalized, and and so on and so on.
No, I'm not in favor of humiliating or saying mean, cruel things to women who behave in this way at all. But I do think that there are some judgments, i.e. assumptions. People are triggered by the word judgment, but we're judging people all the time in a variety of ways that aren't even necessarily negative ways. Judging somebody who's behaving in that way, like, why, what are you doing? What are you getting out of this? Why do you need that? And again, I think that's something that a lot of men, if not all men, honestly, don't understand about women.
And I can imagine like the mother's intention in the slut shaming to be like, stay away from this girl. Like, you are my daughter, please stay away from this slut. Like, she's engaging in dangerous behavior. Like, let's other her so that, we can keep you away from her. Like,
and if she's a teenager engaging in hypersexual behavior, there's a really good chance that she's been sexually abused, which means there's also a really good chance she has a personality disorder and is not going to be a good friend to you. And this is a damaged person, and that the kindness would be to try to offer a therapeutic environment to her, not to just act like that's normal behavior.
Right. It is. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is so frustrating that I apologize that I keep making sweeping generalizations about men, because I know that there are some men who understand this, but I think that there is a majority of men who really don't understand this, who don't realize that girls who are abused, molested, raped as kids or teenagers will really often respond by becoming hypersexual, so by becoming promiscuous and by acting out in sexual ways, and that it's not healthy, and it's not as simple as, oh, she just really likes sex more than all the other girls. And the same thing is true of prostitution and pornography, where a majority of women in prostitution and pornography, if not all of them, do come from, if you listen to their stories, porn stars, famous porn stars will talk about this. Childhood abuse, molestation, rapes, usually more than one thing. Grooming, right? I'm not sure if people understand the term grooming when it's used in terms of prostitution, because it's not always intentional. Sometimes it is. But a lot of women end up in prostitution because they were groomed from the time they were kids to behave like this with men and to expect this from men.
It's almost unheard of to find a woman in prostitution who's a childhood sexual abuse survivor.
The finisher in the live chat, I just saw this, says the female comedian in question was Christina Pazynski, who I quite like. So I'm not sure. Again, I'm curious to know what you mean by slut shaming, and what it was that she said that you took offense to, or thought that it meant she hated herself, or that she wasn't in touch with her femininity, because I don't get the sense from her at all that she's in any way insecure or competitive with other women, because I follow her. So I would be interested to hear more about that. The other thing, we can wrap up soon. I know Isabella has to get going. It's been about an hour, but the other thing that I did want to address, because it was part of this whole conversation that Chris Williamson was having around female competition and women feeling threatened by other women was age gap relationships. So, and I think this is actually quite an interesting topic, because people often talk about, like, well, why is it okay for Cher to date a guy who's 30 or whatever, and it's not okay for a man in his 50s to date a 20-year-old? Maybe they just have a lot in common. And so Chris had said, he was talking about double standards for male and female age gap relationships. So he offered the example of Leonardo DiCaprio, who's 49 now, and has a new girlfriend who's 25. And he, of course, famously always dates like 20 somethings, 25 and under probably. And he says, yes, the same voices are making the same accusations of predatory grooming. Meanwhile, Jane Fonda, who's 85, said she'd only date a 20-year-old as she doesn't like old skin. I suspect she was probably joking, but whatever. And that Cher is dating someone who's 40 years younger. And also, he points out that age gap dating shaming comes from women, not men. Why? And then goes on to say, like, women basically just pretend that it's about protecting young women from predatory older men, but it's actually really probably about female intersexual competition.
Of course it is.
Again, as if I would ever want to date a 50-year-old man who was after 20-year-olds and not think that he was a disgusting creep.
I mean, I think women have a stronger reaction because we're like the ones who like bring life forth and like grow life and like nurture life, and it's like it is predatorial. It is generally a red flag for abuse and control. People who are older generally have more things, more money, more experiences, more connections, more opportunity. Like, of course, there's going to be a power dynamic that's completely out of balance that should concern any woman, especially any mother. If you're like the fucking daughter, if it's your daughter or your son. I mean, I'm absolutely critical of a 40-year age gap between Cher and a young man. Like,
he's not that young. Like, there was a 40, sorry to interrupt you, but when I looked up how old it was, he was like 30 or 35 or something. He's like, so I was like, okay, well, 35-year-old is quite different. Yeah, he was, or he might even have been 37, because how old is Cher now? Like 80? And I was like, a 37-year-old is not a 25-year-old dating a 50-year-old. I mean, I guess it's sort of weird, but by the time you're 37, you're a full adult.
For sure. There's definitely a distinction there. Definitely a full adult. And then I think, like, rather than even looking at it as like she's predatory in some way, it's like he's playing out some weird sexual parental trauma, and so is she. Like, it's two people playing out their weird sexual traumas, and it's uncomfortable to watch. And I think it's okay to say that it's uncomfortable, and some people would go as far to say gross or make a weird face about it. And I don't think that's unwarranted, to see that kind of display of like, just something is being worked out there publicly. And then when it comes to men, I mean, of course I'm more judgmental when it comes to men, because men hold more like material power. And this is a famous celebrity actor who, like, I mean, I think any woman dating a man where, who has that much more money than she does should be, concerned. Like, you want to make sure that that's a really healthy person. And what we know of Leonardo DiCaprio is that, like, the facts are that he cycles through women, like, quite often, And so if I were a 25-year-old who found myself in a relationship with a 50-year-old, yeah, I would be looking at like if this goes sour, like what protection do I really have here? When you combine a celebrity with that much money and power who has a history of only dating young women, I mean, I think it's safe to say he has a fetish for 25-year-old women. I doubt they have one other singular like commonality that we're just unaware of, and that's why he's dating them. I mean,
I think he's gay, but I think somebody just said that in the live chat that he's using them as beards, and that's been my theory for some time now, is that he's actually gay. Because it's weird that he never settles down with anybody and he's still dating these like models. Like it would be like if a gay man would be like, what does a hot woman look like that a man would want to date? And he'd be like, okay, her. Like
I mean, Hollywood, the entertainment industry is full of very emotionally disturbed people who are not good matches if you're looking for a long-term secure relationship, right? Like we just see that statistically, it's full of a lot of very narcissistic, unstable people. That level of fame does a number on your mental health. Why are we even using those examples? The only reason is because they're like elevated as archetypes in our society, right? That they're like the royal or something. We can all see them. I do think there is something true to the fact that women literally mature faster than men do sexually and emotionally. I think some degree of an age gap is often normal between men and women, especially among younger men and women. In my family, like our wisdom around it is don't date anyone more than one Chinese zodiac cycle older than you, right? So it's like 12 years. I feel like 12 years we're getting. If it's more than 12 years, there's you're no longer the same generation. There's more of a power imbalance. But I do think often, a 22-year-old woman is more mature than a lot of the men her age around her, and I don't think it's sick or unusual for her to be attracted to men in their late 20s or early 30s. I think that stayed within your generation is a good rule.
That's a great distinction. Yeah.
I do think that what you said earlier, Isabella, is true. Like I think that a man who is 50 and trying to date 25-year-olds, I think it's a total red flag for abuse. And people get really upset when you say that, and it's like, oh well, age is just a number, or like what if some people are just really mature, have old souls. And I'm like, well, I'm not talking about the 25-year-old per se, but I am talking about what the fuck is wrong with a man who's 50 years old and seeking to date somebody who has nothing in common. Like, give me a break that you have anything in common, like for an intimate relationship, for a partnership with somebody who is 25 when you're 50 years old.
Oh, something that also just I thought of is like there are men. Like I think there are also men who date within that like 12-year, maybe even more, like who date older women, because there are fewer expectations around. Like you're not dating someone who owns a family, right?
Right.
It's like you're not having to contend with some major things that like come up when you're in a heterosexual relationship in your 20s and 30s, even in your early 40s. And so I've definitely had I've had dating experiences where men present as, wanting a family, and then they end up with older women for that reason. Like they don't want to raise children, and they want someone who's in like a completely different phase of life where it's like, almost like pre-retirement. Like it's just that sometimes the age when it comes to the older women and the younger men is also, kind of tied to the not wanting as many responsibilities, the biggest one being, a family, children.
Well, yeah, it would make sense that if you didn't really care about having kids, you would date somebody who is older who also wasn't wanting that. I mean, I just find in my experience, this claim that men are all seeking out much younger women is just not true. I mean, I feel like men of all ages hit on me, like men who are like 25, 30, my age, older than me. Like, I don't know why men are, well, I think I do know why. I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, I don't think I know why men are insistent on maintaining these stereotypes, but I think it's because they want women to feel threatened. Like, I think that's men who say that want women to feel afraid of aging, because if women age, then they have no more power because we don't want you anymore. And it's just not true. And yeah, the man who is, as a pattern, seeking out much younger women is obviously seeking someone he can control to a certain extent, someone who is impressionable, someone who doesn't have healthy boundaries yet, because that can often take time to learn. I did date somebody sort of accidentally. I don't think I ever really liked him that much, but it's a long story. But when I was, 25, and I think he was about 20 years older than me, and he was abusive. And after I left him, he went on to find a woman even younger than me and impregnated her, and then was abusive to her. And he's a total disgusting, narcissistic, abusive man who preys on women who are vulnerable. I had no money. I had no power. I had nothing. And he did have money and power and that kind of power that comes with age as well, I suppose. It doesn't make sense to me otherwise.
And we learn through being in relationship, and
Right.
It's like you have someone who's in their you have a 25-year-old who's probably in her first long-term relationship. Like, she's having to learn all that. Well, he's had plenty of relationship experience. Maybe he's even manipulative. It's like, it's, again, it just is like not, it doesn't really set up the conditions to have like mutual respect, love, and affection, like Mary Lou was talking about earlier. It's a stage for all sorts of like traumas to like kind of recklessly kind of experience themselves, which is most relationship. So obviously in an ideal world, no young woman would ever date a man older than 12 years, and there would be emotional safety and physical safety established before they got involved. This is what we want. This is the kind of world I think we want to see. And so when we see that this is not happening in extreme ways, it's disturbing, it's depressing. And
well, and I think the double standard thing is obvious. First of all, because it's way less common for women to go after much younger men. And I think when they do, people are judgmental because I think people think it looks silly. But I just don't think, it seems obvious, but women don't have the same kind of power potentially over men as men do over women, because men are capable of physical abuse in a way that women aren't. So if we're talking about red flags for things like abuse rather than just judgment and shaming, which is of course what people would prefer to talk about, then of course that's a huge factor. Like, maybe there might be something weird about this woman, or maybe she might want to have control and not want to feel vulnerable in a relationship, but it's much less likely that she's going to be physically abusive or to terrorize this younger guy than if the situation is reversed. And it's also just this common cliche, oh, look who's awake. It's a cliche for a reason. And I think people I think that lots of our judgments in society and culture are there for a reason. And maybe we don't know what the reason is, but I think if you look back far enough, it actually makes sense. And it's not just about people being mean for no reason.
If you look at cultures where that's the norm, an older man and a much younger woman, they are cultures where women are sexual commodities, where he's just looking for a breeding vessel for his sperm, right? He's just looking for someone to make heirs. That, you know,
Right.
princesses get traded in high status families to older kings. Women in the Middle East are sold as children, as, you know, so-called brides, like as rape and breeding slaves. It's a poor indicator for the status of women in a community if that's the norm. That's just incontrovertible. And I think that men who celebrate that and can't see past it are the same men who don't see a problem with prostitution, because women are just commodities there too. Again, it really implies that.
I mean, it's true. Yeah, I think that in cultures and societies where child marriage is normalized, for example, those are societies where women have no power and where really serious abuse of women is normal and rampant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's I'm so glad you brought that up, Mary Lou. And also just like the outcome of, just like anecdotally, like what are the results of women that we know who have been in relationships with men with, you know, 20-year age gaps. Like it's generally not good. So if we just look at the results, then like you said, the societies where this is normalized.
And look at the kind of guys who do that. Like, who do you know or who do you see out in the world who's 50 and going after younger women? I mean, they are creeps and sleazebags, abusers, men who predate on wasted young women in the bars, so predators. Men who don't want to be accountable or take responsibility for their actions.
I have to get going. I'm
okay,
so sorry.
Well, this is a good time to end things. That's okay. I interrupted because this is my little.
It's so cute.
On a lighter note, pet therapy.
Yeah, sorry. And I'm like, anyway, what I really wanted to do was show you the puppy.
I need to soothe myself after this.
Well, I think we got through a lot, and yeah, I mean, sorry, this was kind of a dark conversation, but I think it's important to explain these things. And I'm just so endlessly frustrated that people, i.e. men, don't understand. Like I'm never really sure if they don't understand or if they're pretending to not understand. It's probably some combination of both, but you know, I just hopefully, you know, maybe they'll talk to some women about it someday and actually try to understand what women are feeling about all of this, because to say you're just jealous is so insulting and gaslighting and ignorant, and just really, I really think it's projection. I think men are saying that it's projecting. It's like, this is what you want to be the reality, and you need to do some deeper self exploration if you genuinely want to understand, as you claim you do. You genuinely want to understand the world around you and people and relationships and evolution and why people do the things that they do. You're going to have to talk to some women your own age or older, I think. Gross, I know.
Gross, so unattractive.
I have to look at their wrinkles.
Oh my God.
Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. I enjoyed that conversation. Thank you so much, Mary Lou and Isabella, for joining the conversation. As always, your guys' perspectives bring 90% of everything to these conversations, because I often don't know what I think until I start talking. You're right. It's okay. Mary Lou can have 90 and we'll share the 5 and 5. I'm joking, Isabella.
Perfect.
Love you both.
Okay, we'll see everybody next Wednesday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good night. Like and subscribe.